the political class, raises money and gets ready for the next election. Right now, we need to be focused on helping the citizens of this country stand up to what Donald Trump is doing. And so my hope is that this is a moment in which we are going to all recognize that in the Senate, we've got to train our resources. We've got to train our voices on this moment. There'll be plenty of time to fight the 2026 election. But right now, it's not clear that democracy is going to be around in 2026. So hopefully we will all be part of the protests that are happening over the course of the rest of this month, and that we will be supporting them with our dollars and our voices.
So we heard the Senate side. We've seen the Democrats come together. There's been crickets from most Republicans, except for two in the Senate. The House, Speaker Johnson came to a bank of microphones and had this to say about all of this.
I think the senator's actions, my view is it was wildly inappropriate. You don't charge a sitting cabinet secretary, and everybody can draw their own conclusions. You can see it's a heated debate here. I'm not going to respond to that. Look, let me just, hold on, wait just a second. I think the American people can draw their own conclusions. They saw a senator acting like wildly inappropriate. I'll leave it at that. So,
but what about the way he was treated by the David?
What I saw.
I mean, in moments like this, you just, I'm lost for words, Senator. I just don't understand how feckless and spineless and degenerate in political character and humanity the leadership is right now. I mean, you can't look at this and think that this is a good thing for the Congress, let alone the country, right? I mean, you run the Congress. You can imagine, Senator, 4 years from now, a Democratic senator or a Democratic secretary of fill in the blank, having that happen to a Republican senator who's trying to do their oversight, because Lord knows they're going to be doing some oversight.
If we let this continue to go on, it won't be a Democratic anything.
This is a very good point. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, so help the country understand the difference here, because that's not normal. What we just heard is not a normal response. I don't care what your politics are. You saw a United States senator manhandled to the ground by federal law enforcement officers after he identified himself, who beforehand knew who he was because they escorted him in the room.
Yeah, first of all, let's just call out the repeated lies here, right? The administration says he didn't identify himself. He absolutely identified himself. Speaker Johnson just said he charged the secretary. We all watched the video. He didn't charge the secretary. He was led into the room by officials of the administration. But what we're hearing from Republicans is something really, really disturbing. They are essentially justifying the violence simply because they allege that he was impolite, right? That he was engaging in speech that was inappropriate for the moment. Okay, you can have that opinion, but that is not illegal.
Right.
In fact, the history of the United States is replete with all sorts of protest that has been impolite. The revolution itself was impolite.
Right.
And so the idea that if you raise coarse objection to the regime, you are going to be thrown to the ground and handcuffed, right? It violates the very foundational idea of this country, and it absolutely will come back and boomerang on Republicans. If that becomes the norm, then it becomes the norm regardless of who's in the White House, a Republican or a Democrat. That's my worry, and that's what we have to communicate to our Republican colleagues, so we hear, more of our Republican colleagues speaking up on behalf of the Constitution.
These deportations, the whole reason that this even happened today is because the United States, and I'm going to keep saying the government, because people have to understand that the government is doing this to them, that the government is ratcheting up the attention and the pressure and the rhetoric and the temperature by sending masked armed agents out into communities across the country, deploying the National Guard against the sitting governor of California's wishes, and literally just deporting everybody. At this point, if you ain't got no papers, you might be on the chopping block. But today, the president had this to say, and I want to play that for you and juxtapose it with Tom Homan. If we don't have it, I will read what the president said. Let me read it. Our farmers, this is what the president said today. He also posted this, but he said, our farmers are being hurt badly by, we have it. Let's play it.
Our farmers are being hurt badly by, they have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be, great. And we're going to have to do something about that. We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back. We can't do that to our farmers. And leisure, too, hotels. We're going to have to use a lot of common sense on that.
I've said 1,000 times that aperture will open, and I said, if you're in the country legally and off the table, we will enforce immigration law. For those in the country legally, take advantage of CBP One Home app. Put your affairs together and go home.
Senator, I hear what the president is saying, but I also hear Tom Homan. His words mean nothing if the policy doesn't change.
Yeah, listen, they're chasing agricultural workers through the fields. So Donald Trump can try to sugarcoat the policy, but they are absolutely going after the workforce on our farms, the workforce in our leisure industry. They're going after individuals who are actually here with pending asylum claims. They are acting illegally every single day of the week. And what Donald Trump did in Los Angeles was the opposite of try to keep the peace. He's sent the National Guard in there to intentionally create a fight, right? He was looking to create a pretext in order to do what he has always wanted to do, to impose some form of martial law. And pay attention to the military order to deploy the National Guard. It was not exclusive to Los Angeles. It didn't create the legal foundation to deploy them only in Los Angeles. It was a nationwide order, meaning that at any time, on a moment's notice, if there's a protest that the administration doesn't like in Tulsa or in Boston or in Hartford or in Miami, the National Guard can be in your community in a heartbeat because they are ultimately looking for some form of quasi-military control. He's been talking about it since his first term. So just understand, this National Guard deployment isn't about anything except trying to pick a fight.
Governor Newsom is speaking right now after a federal judge ruled against the Trump administration, ordering Trump to return control of the National Guard to Newsom. Let's listen.
Those cornerstones that he claimed or asserted were not met. Section 12, 406, clearly there's no invasion, there's no rebellion. It's absurd. And so we're gratified. Today is a big day for the Constitution of the United States, for our democracy, and I hope it's the beginning of a new day in this country where we push back against overreach, we push back against these authoritarian tendencies of a president that has pushed the boundaries, pushed the limit, but no longer can push this state around any longer. Happy to take any questions. Well, I hope we look at what happened to Senator Padilla not through the blue or red lens, but through your own set of eyes. And just tell me that that's right. Here's a United States Senator in his home state, in a federal building, in his office building, that wishes to join a press conference, not dissimilar to this, and express himself by simply asking a question, and was handcuffed, was thrown down to the ground, a United States Senator. And anyone that knows Alex Padilla knows one thing about Alex Padilla. He's one of the most mild-mannered, decent people you'll meet. And that's not, don't just take my word for it. Folks on the other side of the aisle would acknowledge that. I thought it was a disgrace. I want to make this clear. The National Guard will come back under my authority by noon tomorrow. The National Guard will be redeployed to what they were doing before Donald Trump commandeered them. The National Guard will go back to border security, working on counter-drug enforcement and fentanyl enforcement, which they were taken off by Donald Trump. The National Guard will go back to working on what we refer to as the rattlesnake teams, doing vegetation and forest management, which Donald Trump took them off in preparation for wildfire season. The National Guard, men and women, will go back to their day jobs, which include law enforcement, that he took them off the job. Just want you to all absorb what I just said. By the way, you don't have to absorb it. You'll have an opportunity to review that in the 36-page order from Justice Breyer that laid that out. and they'll come back under the rightful command of the governor of the state of California.
Governor, what about the president will honor those orders? To demonstrate on Saturday in response to this military event.
Do it peacefully. It's a vulgar display. It's the kind of thing you see Kim Jong-un, you see it Putin, you see it with dictators around the world that are weak and just want to demonstrate strength. Weakness masquerading as strength. To fet the dear leader on his birthday, what an embarrassment. Honestly, that's about as small as it gets. How weak do you have to be to commandeer the military to fet you on your birthday in a vulgar display of weakness? That's Donald Trump.
Governor, you warned other states in your address the other night. What are the messages and conversations you've been having with those blue state leaders?
Well, these governors have all been waiting for this decision. I haven't had a chance to talk to any governors. And by the way, every Republican governor. I remember one of them by the name of Kristi Noem, who just a few months ago was on there with one of the spokespeople for the Trump administration, Sean Hannity, and was going on and on and on about a rumor that somehow former President Biden was going to federalize her national troop. And she stood there talking about freedom and federalism, the 10th Amendment. And here she is, her folks throwing the United States Center from the great state of California on the ground.
How Trump reacts when he loses. He reacts when, and as administrative cronies and stooges and thugs do too. When they get questions they don't like, they bully people, they oppress people, they brutalize people, right? And we're going to see it now. Gavin Newsom scored a big win in court because Trump basically usurped the power of the National Guard from the state of California. Now, there are instances where the federal government can do that. This isn't the most insane thing Trump has ever done from a constitutional perspective, but this is not one of those moments. It has to be a very special circumstance, and the judge basically said that this is a wanton abuse of your power, and you haven't done nearly enough to prove that the circumstances are such an emergency, such an exception, such a national security issue that you need to effectively go over the head of a governor and usurp some of his power. And so you're seeing how Trump reacts to losing. And it's what happened to Senator Padilla today. Now, I know the chain of events here is not exact, but what it does demonstrate is this is how he conducts himself. We saw it even when he was out of power. He was extra unhinged. And it was like, why was he unhinged today? Even more than usual. Turns out we didn't know yet. I said this at the time. Something bad happened to him, and he's just not telling us yet. A day or two later, we found out he got indicted. I forget, and that which I think that was the first indictment, but he was also weird just before the Georgia indictments came down and all of that. And, he was weird as all of these pieces of bad news hit him. And this is where we're going. Donald hates that the judges and many politicians and many institutions in civil society, and above all, the biggest one, you the people, are standing up to him. He thought he would be not only a dictator, but a dictator without any barriers. And that's not true, and he is furious.